So we are going to start with our butternut squash ravioli with brown butter and caramelized apples and a little bit of butternut squash as well. So there's a couple different ways you can do the butternut squash. You can roast them in some olive oil, salt and pepper, and do them in the oven, and that's a fantastic way to do it. For today, we're going to do them on the stove, and we're going to blanch them in some squash juice, which is also not necessary, but we can also use our blanching water as well. So we're going to start our pan here on about a medium high heat. We want it hot enough to where the butter's going to start to brown, and you can put the butter in right at the beginning. We're going to start with about 2 tablespoons of butter. And you want to put it in towards the beginning because you're going to be able to get a good gauge on watching how your butter is going to melt, and you'll be able to control the heat of the pan a little bit better versus letting your pan heat up all the way. So as you can see now, it's just melting as the pan starts to heat up. All right, now the butter is starting to bubble. This is going to be about the point where the milk solids are going to kind of start to brown a little bit and do their thing. At this point, this would be a good time to drop your roasted butternut squash and brown butter ravioli from Element into your salted boiling pot of water. It's about a 3-minute cook time on those, so we'll let those go for about 3 minutes while we prepare the rest of our pan sauce over here. So as you can see, you're starting to get some browning here right away. Smelling is a good indicator, but you can start to see that the butter is just starting to brown. This is when we want to add our apples. So we're going to add about 1 whole Haralson apple. It's going to be about 1 cup diced. Once we put them in the pan, we want to let them sit on one side. We don't want to mess with it at all right now, right away. The heat of the pan is at a good point to where the butter is not starting to burn at all. It's staying in a nice brown, and it's not going to burn at all. And the key here is the reason why we don't want to move the pan at all is because we really want to go for a bit of color on the apples on one side. It's going to be hard to color all the sides of the apples, so to get like that flavor that we're looking for, we want to be patient and let the apples hang out. So at this point, this would be a good time to drop your butternut squash in your boiling pot of pasta water. You can use your strainer, kind of just strain it on the top. This will in boiling liquid, boiling water, these will only take about 30 seconds. And again, I'm doing about a cup of these of our diced squash. So this is at a really good point right now to where we're probably getting some good caramelization on one side of the apples. Squash ravioli is doing its thing over here in the boiling water. All right, now we're at the point where the butter is really starting to get brown a little bit more, so we want to be mindful of that and not take it too far. So in order to emulsify our sauce here, we're going to have to cool the pan down a bit. So now that the butter is starting to get brown, we're actually going to lower the heat and pull our pan off of the heat. And we're going to let this cool down a little bit. At this point, we can kind of shake our pan. We can stir it around. And now we can see that we have some really good caramelization on one side of the apple. And that's really going to contribute to a really nice tasty sauce and tenderize them. So at this point, we can check out our butternut squash. They got another minute or so. So we'll kind of let this off the heat until we're ready for it. And check our raviolis. Almost there. Say about 30 seconds. And then that'll be about the 3-minute cook time. And keep in mind, we're going to continue to cook the pasta a little bit more. Now would be a good time to add some salt to your apples. Alright, so after your pan is cooled down and your ravioli is finishing, this is a good safe tip. You don't want to put wet ravioli into a raging pot of fat. So we'll let the pan cool down. Come over, place our ravioli right into this brown butter. We'll also collect about 2 ounces of pasta water into our pan. And we'll bring it back over to the medium heat here. At this point, we want to keep it kind of at a simmer. You can see that the pasta water is already going to start to bind with the brown butter, and that's going to help us emulsify our sauce in the end. All right, now we can check out our squash cubes. Getting close there, we'll add those towards the very end. So at this point, we can start adding some butter, and we'll start emulsifying our sauce. For this, we're probably going to add 3 to 4 tablespoons. This is for 8 ounces of almond pasta. I let my heat come down a little bit. We want to make sure that we keep the heat up and keep our sauce simmering throughout this process so it doesn't break on us. This is a good time to add some apple cider vinegar if you have some around. That would be a really good acid for this dish. But any acid of your liking will also do. Alright, now that our squash is finished up, we can transfer that into our pan here. Alright, now we're looking really good. Our sauce is looking really good. It's really starting to come together. So right now we're about 3 tablespoons of butter. We'll add our last tablespoon to finish it off. Well, also, this would be a good time to taste our sauce. The acidity of the apples really kind of helps push it all through. Just kind of want to shake the rest of that. So notice here when I take my spoon through the pan, the sauce is clinging to itself and it's creating a trough. That means we have a really, really nice emulsified butter sauce here with brown butter. It's really kind of cool. Now that our sauce is big bubbles, it's all emulsified up here. We're gonna finish it with our parsley, chives, and then we're ready to go to the plate. Of course, the Parmesan.